Hello candidates, welcome back to our channel. मैं हूं CFA Karan Singh and today we will talk about the CFA L1 results which came out recently and the path ahead now. This video would be relevant for those who God's grace did clear their L1 in November 2021 and are planning to write their L2 in August or November 2022. First of all, loads and loads of congrats to all of you. The results have been on the rough side. If you have made it till this far, I'm sure you would have worked really, really hard. Welcome to level 2. Alternatively, if you could not clear L1 this time around, please don't get disheartened. I know the results have not been great, the results have been rough, but said so, this is what the professional exams really are all about. Professional exams do have a tendency to give you a taste of failures before you really get success. They expect you to be thorough professionals even before you have received your charter. In fact, charter milne ki one of the requirements is that you have been thorough professionals at each and every level. It's not like that आपका L1, L2, L3 clear हो जाएगा, you will get a charter and suddenly you become a professional. No, it's a journey. This video is relevant for both the folks who have cleared the exams and those who could not make it through this time around. The timestamps have been provided in the description. You can directly jump to the section which is relevant to you. Now, without further ado, let's move ahead and let's get started. So, first of all, let's address the elephant in the room. The results are out. CFA L1 results have been 27%. Is it good, bad, what? So, it's like this. Since 2021, जब से कंप्यूटर बेस्ड टेस्टिंग स्टार्ट हो गई है तब से द रिजल्ट्स हैव समवॉट seen a downward trajectory. It went to as low as 22% in July 2021. Roughly, if I talk about broad numbers, the results used to be in the range of 40% or something prior to 2021 Feb. या मोटा मोटा अगर बोले तो pre 2021 era, the results used to be around 40%. This has plummeted down to a rough average of around 25%. What should you expect? Is this a new normal? I think yes. In a way, I think you should be prepared for such results at L1 going forward as well. So it was very surprising for me when I was looking through the results of the few students and I noted that out of the 10 subjects, the subjects जिनका बहुत ज़्यादा weightage होता है, like coffin, like equity, like FRA, I've seen the results जिसमें out of the 5 subjects which had very high weightage, the students have scored 70 plus percentage. 4 subjects में student has scored between 50 to 70%, and in one subject less than 50% आए. If you ask me, I would expect that this student would have scored somewhere around 65 to 70%, or maybe even higher, maybe somewhat 70, 71 or something. But the minimum passing score for this past November 2021 attempt would have been somewhere in the range of 73 to 75%. I'll say it is tending towards 75% surely. So total number of questions कितने हैं L1 में? 180 questions in all, and we are talking about scoring 75% to clear it. 135 correct responses we are talking about. If we move ahead, 80 to 85% will land you up in the 90th percentile range. What are we talking about? 85%. Around 153 responses. So just look at this once. If you had 130 correct responses, you did not get through. If you had 140 correct responses, you made it through. If you had 150 correct responses, you were probably in the top 10 percentile. Now, first of all, top 10 percentile में आना is not really the ideal goal or anything. So CFA Institute doesn't really make a disparity between someone who cleared the L1 examinations and someone who was in the top 10 percentile. No, they don't do that. The only reason I'm talking about this 90 percentile range is that the scope of error has reduced a lot. We are talking about thin margins. On some other day, he would have definitely cleared the exams. For those of us who did clear the exams, एक बार उनकी बात कर लेते हैं. If you clear the exams, the thing that would be going on in your mind is whether to go in for August attempt or November attempt. Let's talk about the don'ts first. Let's not think कि अगर आप नवंबर में एग्जाम दे रहे हैं तो you are losing out on 3 months. Please don't think like that. Professional exams don't really work like that. 3 महीने से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला है आपकी लाइफ में. It's not going to make an iota of difference in your life just because you appeared for the attempt 3 months late. The industry doesn't work like that. Real life doesn't work like that. Yes, in your mind you might imagine कि यहाँ 3 months लेट हो जाएंगे, फिर L3 में और 3 months लेट हो जाएंगे, तो मैं CFA 3 महीने के बाद क्लियर कर पाऊंगा अपना, और समथिंग लाइक दैट. प्लीज ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. यू आर अपियरिंग फॉर अ प्रोफेशनल एग्जाम. प्लीज मेक श्योर जो इंटेंट है CFA इंस्टीट्यूट का, द amount of knowledge that you need to encapsulate before appearing for that exam, that should be at the level that is expected. So आपने अगस्त अटेम्प्ट अपियर करना है या नवंबर अपियर करना है, इट्स प्योरली योर डिस्क्रिप्शन. लेट्स से you have just cleared your graduation. At this point of time you're searching for a job, or in a way you are a full-time student. You don't have any other commitments, personal, professional, nothing. Can you go in for August attempt? Definitely yes. Let's say you are someone who is in a full-time job. The job is any which way is very demanding. You're not sure about whether you'd be able to commit those number of hours to clear this exam or not in August. Should you still try and appear for August attempt just to save these 3 months of your life? The answer is no. Please make CFA a part of your life. Not like कि CFA is my life. It's not like that. Your career is moving ahead. Your professional goals are there. उसके साथ साथ आप टाइम मैनेज करें and make sure that you clear your exams. 3 months लेट होता है, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. No difference at all. Please, no compromises here. ठीक है, आगे बढ़ते हैं. Sir, how do I really judge that whether I should appear for August or November? I mean, समय देना चाहिए to clear this exam. We'll talk about that in the next slide, don't worry. CFA Institute says that 300 to 350 hours का 350 hours is what CFA Institute says, in fact, is the expected time for a folk to clear their L1 oblique L2 oblique L3. Personally, I am not sure how they reach this number. I'm sure they would have their own set of mechanisms. उन्होंने कोई सर्वे वगैरह कराया होगा. 300 350 400 घंटे की एक्सपेक्टेशन वो कहते हैं. If you ask me, I'll say be on the safe side. Try to commit more than what they are asking for. Think of somewhere around 700 to 800 hours, and you should see it through. In fact, this is the ask in terms of number of hours. If you ask me ki what should be my end goal, what should be the point where I can say that yes, I'm safe and I should appear for L2, I will say the expectation of these 800 hours is that you have done 5 revisions per subject, solved all the CFA end of curriculum questions, solved all the CFA blue box questions, and all the questions that have been provided in the candidate resource material on website. If you have done all this, if you have done 5 revisions thoroughly, if you have done all this, I think you can appear for the exam once you have ticked all these boxes. How do you really make sure that you have ticked all these boxes? So just a back working, आप देख लें कि आप कितने घंटे allocate कर पाते हैं per day और per week basis पे, and then make small targets. Make sure that you complete this target of 5 revisions at least 2 to 3 weeks before the examinations. Last 2 weeks में जितना भी extra revisions हो जाता है, that would be pure bonus for you. So moving to the next point, what is different in level 2? Well, honestly, if you ask me, not much. You would have read somewhere, you would have had a word with your seniors who say that yes, ये case study based है. L1 में single questions आते थे और उसके responses देके you can just move ahead, so it was faster. The answer is yes, they are right. But what is important is to note that case study style questions don't really make a difference. Why do I say so? Because it's like this. You will be provided a case study और उसमें जो फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ है दैट वुड इनवेरिएबली be corresponding to the first question. Similarly, you move ahead simultaneously with the question with the case study, and you move ahead with the questions as well. So first paragraph will probably correspond to question number one. Second paragraph will correspond to question number two, and so on and so forth. So it's not like that you have to read the whole case study in one go, and then question number one might relate to the last paragraph that was provided in the question. No, generally it doesn't happen like that. मैंने at least ऐसे questions नहीं देखे all through my career. So will case study style of questions make a difference for your exam? The answer is no, not at all. So this is out. What next? So what is the difference? Reduced number of questions. आपने L1 में 90 questions किए हैं each half में. L2 it changes to 44 questions each half. It changes to 44 questions each half of 2 hour 15 minutes. Practically the number of questions have almost been halved. Correct? The number of questions have almost been halved. What are we looking at? We are looking at a scenario of almost 10 questions per half an hour. Simply put, 5 से 6 क्वेश्चंस की एक केस स्टडी होगी, ये आपको 15 मिनट्स में करनी है. दिस इज द रियल आस्क. इफ यू कैन डू दिस, यू आर गुड टू गो. प्रैक्टिकली व्हाट यू आर सेइंग इज हर 15 मिनट में आपकी एक केस स्टडी कंप्लीट हो जानी चाहिए. आपको एक क्वेश्चन के लिए 2.5 से 3 मिनट मिल रहे हैं. इज इट इजी? द आंसर इज नो. द आंसर इज नो. टाइम बेस्ड चैलेंजेस आपको बहुत आएंगे L2 में. L1, even though the number of questions were double, but it was not that challenging in terms of time. If you are really well prepared, you would be able to crack the whole thing 20-25 minutes in advance in L1. In L2, you will have some sort of time crunch. Why is that? एप्लीकेशन बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस. आई डोंट रियली एक्सपेक्ट दैट आप L2 के एग्जाम्स में जाके फॉर्मूला बेस्ड कंप्यूट दिस कंप्यूट दैट देखेंगे जिसे आप सिंपली कुछ फॉर्मूला में पुट कर दें और आंसर आ जाए. जनरली इट्स नॉट गोइंग टू हैपन लाइक दैट. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, एंड फॉर मी द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट, ड्यूरिंग योर प्रेप, आई थिंक in L2, because it's a lot more application based sort of thing now, there's much more importance of CFA curriculum. You cannot compromise on that. You cannot rely on tricks. You cannot rely on shortcuts. You cannot rely on gist. मोटा मोटा पढ़ के काम नहीं चलने वाला है. You will have to have very solid processes and skills in place. How do you get it? Practice. No other way. What stuff to read? I'll say notes which are around CFA curriculum, or preferably the best approach would be to study CFA curriculum at least once. CFA curriculum को पढ़ें, उससे अपने खुद के notes बना सकते हैं. That's the best way out. If not, then at least pick the material which are based on CFA curriculum text. You cannot know the things at a macro level and not be sure about things at a granular level. You can't do that. You can't compromise on that stuff at all. Trust me on that. This was the scary part. Let's move ahead and talk about what is same. कुछ तो ऐसा होगा जिसमें कोई changes नहीं है L1 से. Correct. Same 10 subjects. क्या different है? थोड़ा सा level बढ़ गया होगा. Topics obviously अलग होंगे. But the same 10 subjects come again. Ethics. This is the best part. Ethics, subject wise 90-95% same होगा. More or less it's same. What really changes is that ethics के जो questions होंगे वो और granular होंगे. L2, just like L1, it's all MCQ based questions. You won't be expected to type in your answers, to write in your answers. It's not like that. That happens in L3 का AM half. So we have already talked about the number of hours that is required. It's, in my opinion, somewhere around 700 to 800 quality hours for this level. let's move ahead and talk about granular things in terms of variations in L2 subjects vis-a-vis L1. So we have already talked about ethics. The course content more or less remains same. The questions would obviously be more difficult than you did experience in level 1. But the good news is that you just have to do the revision of all the 7 standards and get started with the questions as soon as possible. That's the way ahead, right? So moving on to the balanced 9 subjects now. Chronological order में ही चलते हैं. Cons. It is definitely much more difficult than you did see in level 1. Now most of us would be thinking हमें तो L1 में issues आ रहे थे quant में, अब आप कह रहे हो और ज़्यादा difficult हो. It's just like this. जो topics हैं L2 में वो L1 के topics से बहुत different है. Hypothesis testing is touched and you move ahead with it. So even if L1 में there were issues or there were gaps in your concepts, I don't think it will really hurt you in L2. It's not going to be that way. You have cleared L1, you have moved on to L2. For clearing L2, even if L1 के concepts for quant अगर कुछ issues थे उसमें, अगर कुछ gaps थे उसमें, इससे कोई हर्ज नहीं होने वाला है. You will be just fine. Just make sure that you are on top of things which are being taught at L2 level. L1 नहीं अच्छे से हुआ तो भी कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, at least in terms of quant. Economics. I'll say this is a reading जिसमें quantum wise बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है. Very few number of topics, very less number of pages allocated to this, very less number of questions provided in the C book. But in my opinion, that is what makes it more difficult. अगर आपको practice के लिए room कम मिल रहा है, it makes it much more difficult, right? Second, especially Indian students tend to perform better in things which are number oriented. जहाँ पे आपसे computations कराई जाएं, calculations कराई जाएं. At the end of the day, even though कुछ derivations के बाद या कुछ होने के बाद आपको कुछ formula पे work करना पड़ रहा है या फिर जिसका एक concrete answer आ पाए, we tend to perform better in those disciplines. यहाँ पे उस हिसाब से थोड़ा सा challenge आएगा, but definitely we can manage it, not an issue. Corporate finance. In fact, let's talk about corporate finance and equity simultaneously because these two subjects tend to behave in a similar fashion. So both these subjects, there's a lot of quantum around it. बहुत सारा text दिया हुआ है इसके ऊपर. So it's bulky. It appears to be overwhelming. But once you are on top of things, once you have done a few revisions, trust me, these two are the most high scoring subjects. And these two have been the most high scoring subjects for L1, L2 students traditionally. And I expect it to remain that way going forward as well. Talking about financial reporting, financial statement analysis and stuff, it's like this. अगर आपका चार्ट अकाउंटेंसी वाला कोई बैकग्राउंड है, if you have been an MBA finance, you have been accounts या finance major, आपका अगर बैकग्राउंड वैसा है, you will tend to say कि नहीं बहुत ज़्यादा difficult नहीं है. But in general, for folks who do not come from accounting/finance background, this is slightly difficult. But again, just like these two, it's very manageable. A lot of numerical discussion goes on in this topic, and as a result, you get a lot of room for practice. आप जितने सवाल खुद से सॉल्व कर रहे हैं, आप जितने क्वेश्चंस अपने हाथ से एक बार निकाल दें, the end result is that even though it's difficult, but cometh the exam day, you are very well prepared for it. Derivatives, very similar nature to FSA, I'll say. Very similar nature. पढ़ने में डिफिकल्ट लगेगा आपको, बट एग्जाम पे पहुंचते तक के इट बिकम्स वेरी हाई स्कोरिंग इफ यू हैव डन लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस. विज़ावी अगर आप देखें सब्जेक्ट्स लाइक इकोनॉमिक्स, सब्जेक्ट्स लाइक पोर्टफोलियो, सब्जेक्ट्स लाइक इवन ऑल्टरनेटिव्स, दीज आर द सब्जेक्ट्स जिसमें कंटेंट आपको कम दिखेगा. While at the time of reading you might find that okay, I'm getting to understand all these things, but the discussion is a lot more qualitative, and that's why I think it's much more challenging. Moving ahead, fixed income, again I think it's, for me, fixed income is a topic which is difficult across 3 levels. You need to be very very thorough with the fixed income concepts, and the concepts build to what you have already studied in L1, and the same would go on for L3 as well. The discussion would in a way presume that you already have a good background of what is there in fixed income in terms of concepts, एट L3 इट इज एक्सपेक्टेड कि आपको L1 और L2 की बेसिक चीज़ों का ध्यान है. सिमिलरली एट L2 इट इज एक्सपेक्टेड दैट आपको बेसिक्स certain some piece of basics are in place from L1. So this was about the subject wise discussion at L2. Now let's move ahead and discuss about the folks who did not make it through this time around and would probably be writing their L1 again this year in 2022. What's important and relevant for you is to understand कि क्या changes हुए हैं हमारे syllabus में vis-a-vis our 2021 content. Broadly अगर मैं आपको कहूँ तो I can say around 20% change आया है आपके content में. This is quite a lot, I'll say. However, now if you deep dive into the subjects, I'll say the only subject जिसमें कोई भी change नहीं है is derivatives. The only subject in which there is no change at all is derivatives. It remains exactly same as what you studied in 2021 itself. कोई चेंज नहीं है उसमें, कोई भी चीज़ का फर्क नहीं आएगा. जो आपके नोट्स थे, बुक थी 2021 वाली, that would work just fine for this. No issues at all. Now moving on to the subjects, let's go ahead in the chronological manner. So just giving you a brief idea of how this doc has been prepared. The items which you see in green, these are the new additions. The items which you see in red, these are the topics which were there in 2021 curriculum but have been deleted now. Similarly, the blue marked ones are those जिसमें थोड़ा बहुत revisions हुआ है, कुछ changes हुए हैं, not major changes, but the old reading remains in place. There have been a few additions or deletions, that's it. Balance, the black ones are those जिसमें कोई भी change नहीं है. Your old reading would work just fine. So if I talk about font, 2 new readings have been added to this. 4 readings में बहुत छोटे छोटे से differences हैं. I think this can be managed, and you can simply take a printout or something of the new curriculum and manage your way ahead with this. ये 2 topics new add हुए हैं. Definitely you'll have to start from scratch for these 2 topics. Economics, I don't think there's a lot of change, although there have been a few rewordings or one LOS added in the 2 topics of aggregate output prices and understanding business cycles. कोई खास change नहीं है. Whatever you studied in L1 for 2021, that should work just fine, trust me. ये 2 changes हैं, these can be managed pretty well. In fact, broadly speaking, आपको जो भी blue items दिख रहे हैं जिसमें भी थोड़े थोड़े से changes हैं, I think it will take probably a couple of days for you to arrange for all the changes, get a printout of all of that, have it stapled and have it with your notes. If I would have been in your place, मैं new books से नहीं पढ़ता. For me, the old notes would work just fine. कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है दोबारा books लेने की, कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है that you should go ahead and study from the book from scratch, because when you're studying from a fresh book, it tends to mess up with your mind a little. When you're studying from your old book, आपका एक अलग comfort factor होता है, एक visual memory होती है, आपको ध्यान होता है कि मतलब ये कॉन्सेप्ट पेज के लेफ्ट बॉटम कॉर्नर पे था, देन यू टर्न द पेज एंड ये राइट टॉप कॉर्नर पे था एंड स्टफ ऑफ दैट सॉर्ट. सो आई वुड नॉट रियली गो अहेड एंड buy new books. I will say simply look at the changes that has happened and manage for these changes and you should be just fine. If I go on to FRA, पूरा का पूरा FRA सेम है. एक टॉपिक ऐड हुआ है लीजेस का. आई थिंक this can be managed again by taking simply the printouts and the photocopy of the new text and you should be fine. Moving ahead to corporate finance. First of all, corporate finance के नाम को बदल के corporate issuers कर दिया गया है. Nomenclature difference, not going to make any difference as such, but बहुत सारे additions किए गए हैं. There are 4 new readings. I think the bulk of your effort in terms of changes goes into this one subject. एक दो subjects में और हैं, आगे चल के बात करेंगे उसकी, but major changes जो हैं वो corporate finance में हैं. Although conceptually आपको बहुत ज़्यादा मुश्किल नहीं आने वाली है. These are not topics which would be very difficult for you, but yes, These being the new readings, you'll have to start afresh for these. Corporate governance, ESG consideration. Just one small addition has been done in this LOS. Any which ways, CFA Institute का बहुत ज़्यादा thrust, बहुत ज़्यादा focus आया है on ESG and corporate governance. So I do expect them to in fact have much more penetration on this topic going forward as well. Moving on to equity, सिर्फ एक टॉपिक में डिफरेंस है. There's some revision which has been done to this reading. You'll have to manage the changes for this one. बाकी के लिए it the old note should work just fine for you. Moving on to the next topic. Fixed income is again a topic जिसमें कुछ changes आए हैं. You'll have to manage this. Although 3 readings में कोई भी change नहीं है, the old one is perfectly fine. The last 3 readings have some bit of changes in this, and you should be on top of it. As I've said earlier as well, fixed income, in my opinion, is a difficult topic. Make sure that you are not compromising with the changes at all. Derivatives, we have already discussed, no changes at all. So the next topic is alternatives. Prima facie, it would appear that the whole reading has been changed. But if you go at the granular level, you will appreciate the fact that थोड़ा सा रीवर्डिंग्स हैं, कुछ बहुत ज़्यादा कॉन्सेप्चुअली ऐड या डिलीट नहीं किया गया इसमें. सो एज सच व्हाट यू हैव स्टडीड फॉर योर 2021 अटेम्प्ट conceptually, that would not really change, but it's definitely advisable कि आप एक बार नए कंटेंट पे नज़र डाल लें, एंड जहाँ पे आपको लग रहा है कि yes, these extra discussion can be added in your previous notes, please go ahead and do that. If I would have been in your place, I would not study the new content more than once. As I said, mainly rewordings हैं, mainly सिर्फ order में ऊपर नीचे किया गया है, सो बहुत ज़्यादा चेंजेस नहीं होने चाहिए. कॉन्सेप्चुअली जो आपका बेस है, दैट शुड वर्क जस्ट फाइन इवन फॉर ऑल्टरनेटिव्स. मूविंग ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट टॉपिक ऑफ पोर्टफोलियो मैनेजमेंट. वेल, इसमें दो टॉपिक्स में थोड़े थोड़े से चेंजेस हैं. देयर इज अ न्यू टॉपिक दैट हैज़ बीन एडेड, बिहेवियरल बायसेस ऑफ इंडिविजुअल्स. एज सच दिस इज अ टॉपिक जो पहले L3 में हुआ करता था. इट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक, आपको पढ़ के बहुत मज़ा आएगा. And yes, because it's a new edition, you will have to do some bit of work around it, but it's very manageable. It's not difficult at all, trust me. The last topic is ethics. As such, if you ask me, I don't really think there's any change in this. एक ethics application की reading new add की गई है, but does it change anything? The answer is no, because in ethics this is where the real meat lies. If you are thorough with this, you will manage the applications just fine. GIPS में गिप्स में एक रीडिंग को डिलीट किया गया, बट इट माइट अपीयर दैट आपका कंटेंट कम हो रहा है, बट इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट. दिस डिलीटेड रीडिंग हैज बीन मर्ज्ड इन द प्रीवियस रीडिंग इटसेल्फ. सो मोर और लेस ये प्रीवियस दो रीडिंग्स को मर्ज करके एक बना दिया गया. सो देयर इज नो चेंज ओवर देयर. एथिक्स में एप्लीकेशन का पीस ऐड किया गया, बट देन एप्लीकेशंस कम फ्रॉम गाइडेंसेस इटसेल्फ. सो again, in my opinion, this remains constant, no change. This was the overall discussion at our end, folks. If you have any specific queries, please do mention it. We'll try to respond to the same. Thanks a lot. All the very best. I'm sure you'll do very well ahead. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye bye.